a dear friend on the show, and also a client of Abundance, Trey Miles. And before we dive in with Trey, just for everybody who's watching, right? At Abundant, we believe that conscious sales leaders are changing the world. And who we are is that we help sales leaders tap into abundant possibility for themselves. And so I'm excited to explore with Trey today his abundant possibility and the leader he's becoming that's doing his part to change his world, that's rippling out, and therefore, doing his part to change the world, which is all we can do. All of us can just do our part in taking our little corner of the world and leaving it better than we find it. And hey, the more people that do that together, the better the world gets for all of us. So, Trey, welcome to the show, my man. It's good to have you here today.
Thanks, Ben. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And just to get started, I was thinking about, I just did a little cold plunge before we got on the show here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Been doing that ritual for a little bit here.
Great.
It worked. It makes me feel great.
It's fantastic.
But anyways, I was thinking about a good place to start, and I was just thinking about the two different types of journeys that we see sales leaders take, or high performers. And one journey is much more common than the other. And the common journey is kind of necessary before you can even have the awareness that there's another journey that you could take, right? Mm-hmm. So that first journey is the journey that is normally why we get into sales in the first place, right? So someone gets into sales because there's a lot of opportunity, right? There's the opportunity to create freedom, right? To get paid for your results. Sales is a great job to have, and a great career to pursue, in a field to explore and master, because there's upside, right? So the better you get at your job, right? Like the more you make, there's all this freedom. And so that first journey as a salesperson is often, it's just playing the game, right? It's like, how can I dominate this profession of sales? Because I want to make as much money as I can so that I can experience as much freedom as I possibly can. And that's kind of like where you start, right? Mm-hmm. And then at some point you get there. Like at some point you start performing it, right? At some point you start making lots of money. And then you start to realize, okay, I'm here where I wanted to get, but I don't feel how I wanted to feel. So there must be something, right? And that's where like the invitation comes from life to explore, well, what else is possible? What's the other journey? So we'll talk about the other journey in a second. But, Trey, I'd love if you could just talk a little bit about kind of like that first journey for you as you were getting into the sales and where that journey took you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So for me, I got into sales at 23, right out of college, and it was interesting. There was this part of it that I feel like a lot of people are like, I intentionally got into sales. I was like right out of college. It was 2009, and I kind of fell into sales. The job market was terrible, and I got a call from a recruiter at a company called HP, and that's where it started. And absolutely, for me, sales became this way that I could create safety for me and my family, or security, some might call, but I've come to realize now that's a sense of safety and a sense of control over our lives. And, but I will tell you, like, when I was in that grind and when I was in that hustle, like when I was just trying to make as much money as I possibly could, and really like win the awards, achieve the things, like, like you said, slay the dragon, like I was out there to be the best. It really created a lot of anxiety for me. There was a lot of like, I wanted to feel safe. Like I wanted to feel secure in my life. Like I wanted to feel like, I was unbeatable, and there was always another level. It was like anytime I achieved at another level, it was like, okay, cool. Now I got to go get the next thing. Like I was the youngest person ever promoted into field sales at HP. I was 27 when I got promoted into field sales, which I sell software, and in the software world, that's like, you're moving into the big leagues at that point, both financially and professionally. And And, it was interesting. Like, I was like, when I get that thing, that's when I'm going to feel safe. And like, I got there, and then it was like, okay, when I've been doing this for 2 years and I'm never going to lose this position, like I'm always going to have the experience to like go get another job, then I'll feel safe. And then it was like, okay, when I've paid my house off, then I'll feel safe. When I get into a leadership role, then I'll feel safe. And it was like each time, the step got bigger even, and it got more anxiety producing. And yeah, like, I think talking about it, like I won Worldwide Sales Manager of the Year at HP. Out of 600 managers globally, I was number one. Like I was on the stage at the MGM Grand in front of thousands of people. I'd made as much money as I've ever made in my life that year. And within 3 months, I was feeling the same feelings. That night felt pretty good. It was like that night I was like, whew, yeah, we did it.
Yeah,
and then it
Vegas,
was like Vegas, baby. Like,
yeah.
like Mike Tyson lost, not Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson bit an ear off on this stage. You know what I mean? Sorry, that's probably dated reference, but
no, I mean, that's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is the legend. Like this place is legendary. And dude, come the end of Q1, it was the exact same feelings. Like it was back to zero the next day. And those moments are beautiful, and those moments are like the most influential moments of my life, but it was killing me. I think I've shared with you in the past, by the end of my time at HP, like I was making more money than I've ever made. I was leading teams. I was building organizations. Like I was doing the things that most people would be like, that's what I want in my career. But I was, 250 pounds, and my back was out, and my marriage was suffering, and like my family life was suffering. And, it just became one of those things where it's like, I can't keep doing this. This can't keep happening the way it's been happening. Yeah, because there's no safety at the end of the day in that pursuit.
Yeah, Trey, hold on just 1 second. My internet's struggling here for some reason. Oh, Xfinity. All right, cool. We're back. All right. Yeah, I mean, so essentially it was, you were breaking up a little bit, but you've shared this with me before, and right. So I mean, the pattern you're describing is thinking that there's a certain achievement that's gonna that'll be when you arrive. That's when you'll feel safe. That's when you'll finally be fulfilled.
The anxiety's gonna go away. Like the money's gonna be there. I don't ever have to worry ever again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Getting there, realizing, oh, that stuff hasn't gone away. And then, for most salespeople, it's like, well, I guess I haven't aimed high enough. Like I must not be there, right? I must have to raise the bar higher and go after that. Same battle, right? Play the same game with yourself. Get there. And some people play that game their whole lives. And that's what we call achievement at all costs, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I'm going to achieve at all costs because I just trust that if I just achieve, that'll take care of all of my problems. That'll take care of everything else. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if you have an achievement at all costs mindset, those costs start to add up over time.
Yeah.
What were some of those costs for you?
I've actually got that picture. Do you mind if I show that picture? It's coming a little. Yeah, there we go.
Here we go.
That's me. That's my team at HPE at the time. I had built that team. It's actually, I think we were a Micro Focus at that point, or we were soon to be Micro Focus. I was in that like HPE Micro Focus like split season there. Talk about a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I was 250 pounds, like I was unhealthy. My back was just a wreck. My body was a wreck. My home life was really struggling. I was spending a lot of time at work, 70, 80, 90, sometimes 120 hours a week. It was just an outrageous, like 12-hour days when I'd leave the front door, and 12 to 13-hour days by the time I'd get home. And it just wasn't a life. It wasn't the life that I wanted. I wasn't mountain biking. Like I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't jogging. Like I love to be physically active. And and I was also spiritually bereft, and I was most of all, I was exhausted. Like I was so tired. I just was so tired. On a lot of levels, spiritually, physically, emotionally, relationally. I was just bankrupt. And I was wealthier than I'd have ever been. Like I had more money. I had more money in the bank than I'd ever had. I remember coming to my first abundant immersion, and one of the guys on the team was like, Trey, you realize you never have to worry about money ever again. And I was like, really? And most people, you know, if they had looked at my financial situation, if they'd known my bank account, I've been like, well, duh, of course you don't have to worry about money ever again. You've got so much of it. But like, no number was going to fix the way I felt, that bankruptcy of the soul and of the body that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm. And when you're in that pattern, there's something that I see happen for a lot of salespeople where like you confuse the next goal for your vision, right? Because like the vision is just like, oh, the next amount of money, right? Like, but that's a goal, right? It's like the next achievement, the next promotion. That's a goal, right? That's an achievement. But that's not the life you want to create, right? That's not who you want to become. That's not the way you want to be making an impact through your work. Like that's what a vision is, right?
How you want to feel.
So, how you want to feel, right? Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
So what shifted for you, right? Because you were going fast on a path to somewhere, I guess, maybe nowhere, but you were achieving at all costs.
Yeah. And I was killing it, you know, by all external measurement. Like anybody would have looked at my life and been like, man, that's the life. You know, and like one more thing about the cost, you know, my wife, one of the things she had said to me was, I don't think we can have kids and you do your job. Like, I'm not going to be a single parent. Like, I'm not going to like raise a child on my own while you're out achieving, you know, like I need you here with me. I need you involved in your child's life. And until that's a possibility, I'm not going to have a kid with you. And, you know, it seemed like a barrier we couldn't get over. You know, it seemed like an impossibility that I could do my job differently. And I remember going to my intro immersion. I was literally in the Uber. Like, I remember this moment. I'm like, if I can make enough money to buy enough rental properties that I can cash flow my life and never work again, that's it. Like that's it. That's when it'll feel different. Like, I'll pay my house off. I'll have enough cash flow to never work again. And then I'll just be set, and I'll play golf, and I'll raise my kid, and, you know, we'll do the thing. Like, the goal was about to be like bail. That was about to be the goal. Like, get out of sales, get out of this industry. Like, it's not worth it. You know, I just lost one of the largest, like the Tuesday before my first immersion with Abundant, I had just lost the largest deal of my career. And it was so painful. And I just remember being in the cab, being like, or the Uber in San Francisco, being like, I'm just going to coast this thing through. I'm going to make as much money as I want to make, and then I'm out. Year or two, I'm done. And yeah, that was I think that was a bottom for me. You know, it was like this, it primed me up well. You know, it set me up to come into that immersion in a way that said, I'm open. You know, I'm open to something different, because I was already looking for something different. I thought that other different was just getting out of sales, and like what the different really was a new way to think about sales, a new way to operate in sales that was more sustainable at the end of the day. Because the way I was living my life wasn't sustainable. There's a whole bunch of irony in the middle of all this that we could go into, but I think it's for another conversation.
Yeah, and just to like highlight one thing in that vision there, it's really the vision of like ultimate safety and comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we just live off of multiple streams of income and not have to work. Like, that's the dream, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the next. Like, that's the next level.
Yeah, right.
Then I'll be out of the rat race. Then I'll never have to tussle again.
And that's where it's like, a lot of times it's important for people to take a harder look at their vision and be like, wait, why do I actually want that? Like, what's actually the motivation? What do I think that will get me? Yeah. And the more honest you can be with yourself about that, the much more of a revelation you have the opportunity to have. Because in that case, it's like, you know, if you're just chasing safety, like, how does that feel? Like, what's the experience of constantly pursuing the thing that will then allow you to feel safe?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, there's kind of two things. One is anytime I'm chasing something that's outside of myself, it's going to ultimately be riddled with anxiety. Because if it's outside of me, if it's some external circumstance or some external situation, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. I'm going to feel insecure because somebody could come in and take it from me, whether that's the government or, my wife or, my whatever, fill in the blank, an addiction or, there's a level of instability that is just inherent in chasing something that's external. And so for me, it was like, I want to feel safe by having these external circumstances look right. Like it was just it always felt tenuous. It always felt unstable. It always felt uncertain. And what happened for me was I felt like I always called it this like simmering pot of anxiety. Like I just had this like this icky pot and like, every now and then the steam would burst out the sides and I'd say something I didn't want to say or I didn't mean to say, or I'd get angry at somebody who didn't deserve it. But it was always this, I was always anxious, like always was anxious, no matter what. Even after I was on stage at MGM Grand, I was anxious. And that's the feeling for me that was like, I can't keep doing this. And I blamed it on the job. And really didn't have anything to do with the job. Like I'm me no matter where I go. And as long as I was chasing some external validation, I was going to feel that anxiety because it's insecure. Like ultimately when I want to have security, like I'm trying to have certainty about the future. And like, it's inherently, you'll never like, in particular right now with COVID, right? Like certainty is an illusion. The idea that I can somehow predict that there's going to be a global pandemic in 2020, like I'm listening to all these podcasts from January of this year, and it's such a statement to how it's all like if you're putting your certainty in something that has to do with controlling an outcome or controlling something outside of yourself, it is inherently unstable because you can't control the future. Because something like COVID will knock that over. Like certainty is an illusion.
Well, yeah, even if because like COVID's also like maybe because if I'm watching this and I'm hearing you say, I'm like, oh well, it's a pandemic. Like that doesn't happen every year. Like so, this is just a particularly unstable year. No, but the reality is that things are always unstable. Like uncertainty is the only certainty.
Yeah.
COVID is just showing people how real that is.
Yeah. Well, even just to like back up, right? Like I won the award at the end of 2017, probably. It's like the end of 2017, I won the award. The next year, my mom got cancer. One of my best friends died of a heart condition. Another one of my friends got testicular cancer randomly. Both my grandfathers died within a 2-month period. Like my sense of what was certain completely went out the window and it had nothing to do with the global pandemic. The one thing I can guarantee you is people in your life are going to get sick and they're going to die. Like that's super sad, but it's also 100% reality. And when those people get sick and those people die and you're chasing achievement, you can double down on the achievement and try to make yourself feel different, or you can reevaluate your life. And I had to reevaluate. And I think the pandemic is, like you said, just emblematic of the truth of life, which is everything is inherently unstable and uncertain externally.
So let's talk a bit about like what's changed since, right? You're a few years ago. And I think a good place to start, and by the way, to anybody who's watching, if you're watching live, feel free to ask questions in the chat box. And we can ask them to Trey, or you can ask them to me, whatever. If you want to participate in this conversation, feel welcome to jump in here. But Trey, I think like so that was rock bottom, right? That was the turning point. And what's changed since, right? If there was this journey of chasing safety and certainty with external results and outcomes, like what's shifted for you, and then also like what has shifted as a result of that, right? So like what's changed in your orientation towards your work, towards life, and then how is that shifting the world around you, right? Because you're shifting your inner world in a lot of ways, and then the world around you is starting to change because of that. So can you walk us through that a bit? How that's
So I feel like the way that this shift occurred, maybe just to go back to like where the shift happened. I was at that abundant event. Like I remember being in the car and being like, hey, like if I could only create enough cash flow to pay for my life, then I'll, never feel this way again. I can like get out of the game and like get out of the rat race and I can feel secure. And I know that those weren't the words at the time, but that's the words that I can see now in hindsight. I got to the immersion event and I had this, you mentioned it, the deeper your bottom, like the more intense the revelation is. Like I had that revelation at the abundant event, or at the intro immersion that you guys ran in San Francisco. And it was this reframe. It was like, I call it seeing behind the matrix. It's like that moment where something shifts in my lens and I see everything different. And it was really that moment. And it shifted to, I have been running everything off this desire for safety. I've been running my entire life off this need to feel secure. And I need to shift that. It's failing. It's not working anymore. And I want to live in a life that's pursuing something greater, both in my inner world, but also in the impact that I have on those that I love. My family members, like I said, my grandfathers, like all of these people had just died in my life. And life's so short. One of my buddies that had just passed away was 23. He was 32. He was cooking eggs for his soon-to-be stepdaughters, and just had a latent heart condition, and he died. And it was just this like, I have to think of this thing completely different. Everything needs to be different. Everything in my life is based off this search for safety, and not just my life, but my family's lives. When I left that night, like I took my wife out, like Kelsey, my wife, was in town and with me in San Francisco. And like, I just remember being in the Uber. I don't know what the poor Uber driver thought of this conversation, but me and my wife are in the back of some Uber, and I'm going, we have to completely think everything about our lives, all our goals, all our ambitions, our relationship with money. Like we need to rethink all of it to really focus on what's possible in our lives, not how to stay safe. Like I realized that we were playing not to lose, not playing to win. And what I mean by that is not necessarily win as an achievement perspective, but win as in like have the impacts that I want to have on the world, my family, the people that I care about, the people that I love. So that was really this turning point for me, where the lens, like the perspective, just shifted completely. And I started to operate in a new way. And I will tell you, that was not like I had a shift, but the behavior didn't shift like that. It took really the last 2 years as I've cultivated this experience of abundance, this experience of living a life to create rather than consume, rather than be safe, rather than feel okay, really pursuing those higher values, both in my own emotional experience, but also what I create in the world. And in the inner experience, it was how do I become okay just being me? Not what my outsides looks like, but how do I reorient towards my insides so that I can feel okay? How can I be internally referenced instead of externally referenced? And then I think that's where it really started. There's some vision stuff that then comes out of that that's really beautiful, but I think it really started with like really aligning, how do I become internally referenced and externally referenced?
Yeah. So just to pause for a minute here, what you're helping describe really the possibility paradox, right? Which is the 3 steps that we see leaders go through when they go from one path to the other, right? So the first step is you start to lead yourself and taking ownership for the paradigms that are running your world. So you had in the cab ride, you had one of those moments with Kelsey. We need to rethink everything. We've been operating from this paradigm of like safety at all costs, and it's not working. And you had that experience of realizing like we're missing out. Like we think that we're doing the right thing here, and we're like creating the life that we want, but we're actually missing out on so much along the way. So much of what we can be experiencing and even what we can create. Because safety is boring when it comes down. Like that's not a possibility. You didn't come into this world to be safe, right?
No.
And not that safety is not important, but if that's like the highest priority, right? Then there's a whole lot of levels of fulfillment and aliveness that you're going to miss out on in life, right? So that's the shift then to possibility.
Yeah. Well, can I share like a shift that I think is really clear real quick? So I wanted to have rental properties, right? My vision was like, all right, we're going to have these rental properties. I'm going to invest my money in these things. We're going to be cash flow positive, and we're never going to have to work ever again. And like, we're going to pay the house off, and then we're going to have these rental properties, and our lives are going to be set. Like, we don't have to worry about anything ever again. That's the inner dialogue. But I got to tell you, like, the thing we haven't talked about is my wife. And my wife is so good at creating space that feels so welcoming and so loving. And that is an absolute waste on just creating rental properties that are there to make cash flow. It's an absolute waste of talent because my wife is so talented at creating really beautiful, welcoming spaces. And so we shifted that vision, and it's so funny because it's kind of the same vision. Yeah, we paid the house off. That happened. But now but it happened from a different perspective. It happened from a place of abundance as opposed to a place of scarcity. And there's some interesting things there too. But what now our vision for my wife, the vision is not necessarily all these rental properties, it's Airbnbs. It's places where people can come and enjoy the local culture. And, we're about to open our 5th Airbnb and then shortly thereafter our 6th right now. And we've got 1 active, we've got 3 that are inactive currently. And then we're about to launch our 5th and then hopefully our 6th very shortly after that. And, it's interesting because it's kind of the same thing. It's just like an upgrade. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of similarities between what we were doing before, but the vision is so much bigger for what we can create. And it's really not focused on that cash flow. It's really focused on the talents that my wife brings to the world, which is creating these beautiful, welcoming spaces that feel so comfortable for people. Like if you ever want to check out our Airbnb, like literally like the reviews are, this is the best Airbnb experience I've ever had. Like this was such a welcoming place for me to have some time off. Like we've had through COVID, we've had people that, had to have their honeymoons in our backyard, in this Airbnb, or they had to they had to get away from the kids for a night just so the couple can reconnect. But that value is so huge that she's delivering to the broader metroplex of Dallas and really anyone from around the world who wants to visit Dallas. And so it's just, I don't know, man, it's just so much more beautiful. It's so much more impactful.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much we could talk about here too, and how
I know
how your vision really is. Let's not go here, but we'll just put a tack in, right? Like how you've made the vision really our vision, right? Like you as a couple have a vision together.
Absolutely.
What you're describing there is like the vision is an expression of gifts, right? It's an expression of contribution, right? If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's actually the highest need: contribution, impact. Versus safety and certainty, which is at the bottom. And the higher up you go in the pyramid, the more energy it brings you to be operating from that need, right? So the vision can be a similar vision, but more colorful and more energizing. It can bring you more aliveness because it's coming from a deeper need. And you're describing that for you and your wife's Airbnb business. But the same is true for people in sales, where oftentimes people have that, like the revelation, the breakthrough, the realization of, oh shit, I've been doing this all for safety. Like I've just been chasing comfort. I've been trying to like be the top dog versus actually just being like the top dog of my vision, whatever that is. Right.
Totally.
And you don't have to quit your job or like bail or go like start a company to then experience that fulfillment. You have to slow down, take a step back, realize the paradigms you've been coming from, choose more empowering ones, and then bring a whole new level of purpose to what you're doing. It's like it's the old, this has been said for many, many years. It's why you're doing it that matters most, right?
Yeah.
It's not the vision, it's what's behind it. And so what's behind your vision and your wife's vision is very different now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and, kind of talking back to, for me for a while, the vision was like professionally, the vision was, and you kind of talk about taking a step back. It was, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And what's interesting is that we could have an entire conversation about that revelation around, like, it's not about necessarily changing the way I feel, but the relationship with those feelings. Right. We could go on a tangent there, but just to kind of reiterate, my vision was I want to change my experience of work. I want to change the way work makes me feel and the empowerment that I feel inside of myself to own my number, to own my life. And, for me, it was like, I started doing that inner work, and I started like doing all of the work and all the like life stuff that I needed to support me to be internally referenced, to say like, no matter what my quarter looks like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay no matter what. And I had to start doing all of these daily practices. I really had to start practicing self-care and really changing the way I think. Cause like my mind was obsessed with safety and it was really an addiction. It was an addiction of like, if I can only do this, if I can only reach this outcome, if I can only go this far, if I can only work this hard, if I put this many hours in, I'm going to be okay. And I really had to like untangle all of that and come back to I'm okay no matter what, and becoming internally referenced instead of like doing reference, becoming being referenced. And that was a journey, you know, that and it was a powerful journey, and it actually went, honestly, it went relatively quickly, and there's layers and it keeps going and it's never actually done and there's all that stuff. But I stopped feeling that low simmer of anxiety. I'll tell you, sometimes it was hotter, you know, sometimes like the stuff that came up was more intense. It was like I was more sad, I was more angry, I was more all of these things. But I learned tools, and really this is a lot of what abundance given to me, is the tools to learn to like manage the emotional experience that sales creates. Sales is an extremely anxiety ridden job. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what product you're selling. If you have a number and a target and you have to achieve that number month after month, quarter after quarter, week after week, for some of you guys, it produces anxiety. I don't care how macho you are. I don't care how much muchísimo you have.
On the way, right?
Yeah, right. You're going to be anxious, right? So for me, it's like, I had to learn to like handle the emotional experience of sales. I had to learn to like be present with my human experience as a doing salesperson. And there's tools I had to learn to do that. And I had to learn to sit with my feelings. I had to learn to sit with the disappointment of losing a big deal. I had to learn to sit with the sadness of missing my number in a quarter, of letting people down, and really learning to own what's mine and let go of what's not. All these tools. But once I learned to do that, I was experiencing more joy. Like I was letting the emotions that were like sitting in that low simmering pot of anxiety. Like I was taking the lid off instead of it spurting out the sides. I was taking the lid off. Feelings come out, but then they were out, and I could feel joy again, and I could feel happiness again, even while I'm missing my number. Like, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, Ben, man, my life's been crazy over the last 6 weeks, just as like a contrast to when all those people died and I lost those big deals. You know, these last couple of weeks have been extremely disappointing. You know, and a lot of this is COVID related. You know, I had a deal. I got a purchase order in for basically 75% of my annual number. 2 weeks after I got the purchase order, asked to back out of the contract. At the same time, I was signing on for a construction project for my wife's Airbnb business. That was the exact same amount of money. You know, it was like these, and, you know, and then there's more, you know, there's more things, and I could keep going. Tree fell on the little cottage at my lake house, you know, it's like just all this stuff. And it's really intense. But because I've learned to feel my feelings, like I've had immense joy in this season. I've had immense love in this season. I've had immense connection with you and Zach and my wife and, you know, my therapist, and like all these different parts of my life I'm super connected to. Because I learned to feel those feelings, I learned to sit with my emotions in a way that's healthy, in a way that processes them, because you're going to feel them in sales. So for me, that was kind of the first vision, is learning to be internally referenced as opposed to externally referenced. And it's been a very hard and beautiful journey because of all the space it frees up. But then what I was able to do is then create a vision for what I want to bring to the world. And that's just really powerful. I'm going to pause for a second because I just went off, but we can get to the vision.
I mean, you sure did. Yeah. And, you know, we have like 5 or so minutes left here. And I think the last thing you said, I want to just go in that direction, which is your vision. And there's your vision is refined, and you've owned it more over time. But there's a North Star right now that you're pretty clear on. And, you know, the North Star is a vision that guides your orientation, right? Guides your direction in life, guides your decisions. And, you know, it's important to have a vision that you're moving towards in life, that it's not necessarily about like, I need to hit this at all costs, right? Even though, you know, as you share yours, it's like, it's definitely achievable. It's definitely something that's possible, but it's more about the vision reveals the essence of how you want to be showing up in the world right now. And so I'd love to just talk a little bit about both of those points, right? Like what is that North Star? What's that guiding vision for you right now? That image that inspires you, gets you out of bed, makes you come alive more than anything else. Your North Star, right? Which you've refined and owned. And let's start there, but then let's talk about like, how does that actually support you and how you show up day to day? Right. So what's your North Star?
So do you mind if I share the evolution of the North Star just a little bit?
Not
I know
at
we've only
all.
got like, okay. Yeah. So the first time this vision dropped in, it was about 4 months after I had that experience of like, I need to completely change everything. And I'd really been practicing my self-care routine, and I'd really been grounding myself in my own existence and my own internally reference. And I had this little seed that dropped in of like, I want to shift software sales at its foundational core to being a place that operates from abundance as opposed to scarcity. There are so many software companies out there that play not to lose. They play from the sense of safety, whether that's they're chasing the next round of funding, or they're like, the companies operate that way in a way that's just seeking safety. And I said, and that really was this little small voice, and I was so afraid of it when it first dropped in. And it was like, you can have this impact. Like, you can help shift the way that companies operate so that they help people thrive, that they're focused on their employees being the best versions of themselves they can be. You can help software sales realize operating from abundance actually creates more abundance for everyone, as opposed to scarcity, which literally can kill people if it's not done in a way that's safe. Ironically, operating from a place of safety can actually kill people, which is true. And I've experienced that in my own career. And what I truly believe now, my North Star, is that I want to grow a company and take it public from a place of abundance, where we've created a culture of abundance, where we're treating our employees as humans, and we're really opening the possibility for them to become the best versions of themselves they can possibly be, to service our clients, and really showing the market, showing software sales, in particular the startup world, that when we operate from this place of abundance, we are truly creating true abundance for everyone, our employees, our shareholders, the investors, the street, our customers. And when we operate from that place that really focuses on allowing people to be human, allowing people to feel whatever they're feeling, because this job is extremely hard, we can shift that trajectory there. Like, my vision is truly like ringing the New York Stock Exchange bell when we've taken this company public. And the vision is really seeing the ripple effect, like seeing the people who've like bought into that vision of abundance, of like operating from what we're trying to create, not what we're afraid of losing. And really like the ripple effect of that. Like, there's some methodologies in sales that come from a company that was a unicorn in the 90s. And this is really what informed the vision for me, is like almost everybody in sales uses this methodology that was created in the 90s because these guys created the first billion-dollar company. I truly believe we can do that for this abundance, where we build a company based off abundance. And because it was so successful, it then ripples out and changes the face of the way venture capital firms think about operating and funding startups.
Let's do it. Woo! I'm on board. All right. I'm enrolled into that vision, baby.
Hell yeah.
So, and so what is it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I realized I didn't answer the second part of your question, which is, how does that support me?
No, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, how that vision supports me is it helps me. It's a filter, much like I talked about earlier with like the scarcity lens, or this like safety lens, versus this like abundance and possibility lens. It's a lens, it's a way for me to look at opportunities, whether it's somebody approaching me to, take a new job, or even in the way I want to operate in my current job. It really, okay, how do I operate in a way that takes me closer to that North Star as opposed to farther from that North Star? Like, it helps me evaluate every opportunity, like, or even my current opportunity. Like, is the company I'm currently working for taking me closer to that vision or further from that vision? And so it lets me filter all of my decisions daily on that that future that I want to create.
Awesome. So Trey, here in closing, I want to give you an opportunity. Well, actually, two things. Before we get to the closing thing with you, just to anybody who's watching, it's been a pleasure to have Trey on here today. Trey has worked with Abundant for the last few years now, and you've heard him reference this thing called an immersion. And just if you're curious, you can check out abundantleader.com and reach out to someone on our team. We do these virtually now, but we do these weekends that we call the Igniting Abundant Possibility Experience. And it's all about igniting the opportunity for you to have the paradigm shift and connect to your abundant possibility, which is what Trey has been referencing early on his journey, right? And that's who we are at Abundant. We help sales leaders tap into abundant possibility. And Trey, as you are on your journey now, right? You've had this. You're continuing to grow. Like you haven't arrived, but you've got this new way of practicing, this new way of being that you're committed to. If you could go back and if you could give advice to yourself, let's say 5 years ago, right? 5 years ago, were you still at HP?
Yes. I would have just been starting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What pearl of wisdom or piece of advice would you today give to you 5 years ago?
This is that irony that you were talking about, Ben. I ran my team at that time. So when I started this team at HP, me and a really good friend of mine, a guy named Alex Renee, we put together this, we call it the program. And it was really this, how are we going to operate as a management team in this new inside sales organization that we're building together? And that the core essence of it was self-care first. Like take care of yourself first, because if you take care of yourself first, you're going to be able to service your clients better. You're going to be able to achieve more numbers and all this stuff. And so this is what the irony is. What I would tell myself 5 years ago is practice what you preach. Because I wasn't taking care of myself. This guy, that's not a self-care first guy. Mm-hmm. This is this guy right here. Not a self-care first guy. And yeah, so it's like practice self-care. Like take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your soul, take care of your family. Mm-hmm. Do that first. Because if you show up from that place, you can accomplish anything. And not only anything, you can do it sustainably, which was really the biggest impact of that, of why I couldn't do that job long term, is because it was killing me. So that's the advice I'd give to that guy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Trey, I want to say thank you so much for being on here today, sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, and just, being humble and sharing authentically what's been powerful for you and what could help others. So appreciate you coming with your heart here today, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later.